Hey, everybody, welcome to Nothing But the Truth. I'm your host, Sharrie Ryan, and today I am speaking with Jasmine Lillich and Brandon Schilling of Save Port Westward. Okay, this is in Columbia County, Clatskanie, Oregon. Welcome, you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yes. So, a bit of a background. Next Renewable Fuel Incorporated, this huge company, is proposing to construct a renewable diesel, naphtha, and renewable jet fuel manufacturing facility, right, at the port of Columbia County, their Port Westward Industrial Park outside of Clatskanie, Oregon. This is a big deal. So I'm speaking with you guys today. How did you guys hear about this project?
Well, we sort of stumbled upon it haphazardly, heard the rumors that they were having an open house in Clatskanie, and so we dropped everything and took our gathering of fellow farmers with us and came into this meeting in the Great Hall that had the usual spread of people, sort of the economic developers and I call them money chasers on one side, and farmers and concerned citizens on the other side. And we listened to their gold-plated, shiny, sparkly presentation of all the wonderful things they were going to bring to Clatskanie, and sort of read between the lines, and were very shocked. Also to find out that there was not a lot of awareness in our community of this project, and a lot of the people who were aware had very big misconceptions of what the project was actually going to be.
Okay.
And I'm fifth generation Clatskanie, and we had been down in Southern Oregon for the last decade, so we had just moved back, and so that's why probably we hadn't heard. But even then, we started reaching out to the community and found out that the community that we were a part of really didn't know about this project either. And so in the five generations, I know what the roots of Clatskanie are in farming and agriculture. I grew up here and I saw what Port Westward became in the last 30 years in the industrial development that's been proposed out there. So I know the history.
Awesome. And so what prompted you guys to start this group, Save Port Westward?
Well, I guess in reading between the lines of this sparkly presentation, what our background is primarily in is health, personal health, and how that relates to the food system and our environment. Some would call us environmentalists, but we just like clean water and clean food and clean air to breathe like any normal human being. So I'd say we're all environmentalists, but we understand the pressure on our water systems, not just our oceans, but our waterways are under huge pressure from loss of species and habitats, from pollution, overfishing, and food farming. We understand the pressure on our food systems, the toxic chemicals that affect our personal and environmental health, the soil degrading agricultural practices like tilling and pesticide use, land use change, which is the process of replacing productive ecosystems like the Amazon rainforest with destructive farming operations. And, really, it's quite simply, the agricultural industrial complex that this project would depend on is a leading emitter. And there's absolutely no getting around the fact that Next would depend on that kind of a system.
And then us coming from, Southern Oregon for the last 10 years and watching the land dry up, be affected by wildfires, climate change or not, this is where we're at. This is the pattern that's happening right now. And farmland is disappearing at alarming rates worldwide, but also in Oregon. Through industrial and urban development, drought and wildfire. And so, this proposal is only going to pave over 125 acres of wetlands, and then do a wetlands mitigation to replace that, which we'll get into a little bit down. But it's surrounded by 5,000 acres of prime agricultural land, class 1 and 2 soils that have taken thousands of years to be formed by the periodic flooding of the Columbia River. And we don't believe that you can have a polluting industry that close to your food that you grow. You wouldn't work on your car in the garden. And no matter what, if you have, of stacks that are polluting, those are going to land on those sensitive crops.
Okay. So this is what really got you guys involved of being, promoters of, talking about it not happening, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I go after the facts.
Sorry to, not that it wouldn't just happen, because it could go somewhere else too. And we wouldn't want this kind of a project necessarily to go somewhere else. What we really want is for people to understand that this is what is called greenwashing, right? We really want people to understand that this company can come in and say they're going to do all these amazing things, but if you really get down to brass tacks, the dots don't connect.
Like putting the gluten-free label on your kale.
Yeah. Okay. This is so informative. I'm so thankful to talk to you guys. So I go after the facts, the opinions of truth from you guys. You guys sound like experts and farmers and agriculture and health about these things. You've studied them. This has been a part of your life and your family and your history. Can you guys give us like a risk benefit analysis? Like, give me some pros, give me some cons, and kind of address those of this project coming to Port Westward.
So I can just speak to the pros that the economic developers and those money chasers will tell you. They'll claim that 240 jobs, well-paying jobs, are coming, which next claims that they're going to be paying their salaries 2 times what an average refinery job would be. So that's hard to believe for us that they would actually pay those wages. But 240 full-time jobs. I'm just wondering who they're going to get to fill those jobs and where they're going to live. Workforce Oregon came to Clatskanie a couple of weeks ago and spoke at our Chamber of Commerce meeting, and they stated that there's record job growth and we have a record labor shortage. So people aren't wanting to work right now. And so I'm not really seeing that is justified, that this project is justified just based off of those 240 jobs. And they also claim a really hefty tax revenue. And I'm having a hard time with the previous reputation and history of the big players in this company with their Odessa Superfund site, and just nobody that is a big player in this project have actually had a successful project. And it's hard to believe that they could be asked to come to our community without presenting a resume first. So that's kind of, this tax revenue, they've never come into a community, done a project, and actually paid that community what they deserve.
Yeah, and let's just hit on that Odessa Superfund site, Odessa, Washington. A resume, I've gotten harder jobs in a dish pit with a stricter interview. And I kind of joke that they should have been given a house plant first, and then maybe a puppy dog, and then the world's largest oil refinery in our backyard.
Well, and they'll talk their way out of the Superfund site too, and that they'll say that they paid, but we have evidence that they didn't. So if anybody wants that, we are happy to pass that along.
Okay. So those actually kind of sound like cons, and really, honestly, it's hard for us to find.
But those are the pros that they're pushing, right?
Right.
What are the cons?
And we're not for, we want strong economy here. We just believe that we have a natural resource of 5,000 acres of prime agricultural land that could provide those jobs. And
that economic opportunity.
Yeah.
That growth. So there are obviously a lot of cons and probably far too many to unpack, or not enough time to get into enough detail necessarily. But we'll pick some of the main points. And the number one, I just read a letter to the editor in the St. Helens Chronicle that somebody said there is no community at Port Westward, that we're just making all this up. There's no concerned citizens that live out there, and that's quite shocking actually to hear from members in our community.
Well, and they live in the Beaver Drainage District, and Port Westward is part of that. So yeah, semantics.
Yeah, so let's zoom out, I guess. Let's just try to picture 6,000 acres of an island that is basically interwoven with ditches. It's basically a wetland, and these ditches and levees have kept farmland and homesteads from flooding for generations. And so one of the main cons is that this company is required to do a mitigation ratio of almost 4 to 1 acres. So that means for every acre of development for their facility, they need to mitigate 4 acres of wetland. And this wetland is just sort of puzzle pieced amidst all these farms and homesteads, and not really sensibly incorporated into the surrounding community. And not only that, but these soils are incredibly sensitive. There's artesian wells just 3 feet below the surface. There's what are called boil points, which are holes in the levee structures, and any sort of alteration to these levee structures and to this amount of land out there would actually affect, I know this all is a lot, so keep with me, but would affect the ability of landowners out there to be covered for flood insurance, because those levee structures have to be certified by the Army Corps of Engineers. So the Army Corps of Engineers basically said, if this wetland mitigation goes through, then it's actually going to compromise whether or not the entire drainage district can be certified for emergencies. So that's one major thing that people's livelihoods would be at risk.
Because people see this wetland mitigation as a positive thing, right? You're restoring wetlands. Like that's a good thing, but there's a place and a time. So
And so in the interest of time, I'll move on to our next con, which is that there is absolutely no compatibility with agriculture and industry. Jasmine already used the metaphor. Would you work on your car in the garden? No, you wouldn't. And so this is really one of the big points that is keeping this project from moving forward. There's particulate matter coming out of these stacks. There are, there's all kinds of pollution. Let's not even go down that road. If you want the list, we'll send it to you. But what's happening is these animals and plants are ingesting the pollution that is falling around on the farmland. And it not only hinders their health and the way that they operate and function in the environment, but then we consume those animals and plants, and it affects our health, right? And so this is something we all need to start thinking about, especially in understanding where and how our food is grown. It's not just a pretty shiny, glossy apple that you're necessarily getting at the store. There's other things in that apple.
Yeah, bioaccumulation and the DEQ, that's not part of what they're looking into. Right?
That's not something our regulatory agencies are considering. They're quite a bit behind in a lot of things.
The people that are in favor of this project will tell you that there's only like 11% of agricultural land in production out there, and that's not true. It's more like 80 to 90%. I think that they might be referring to commercially like commercial agricultural land. In that case, you have the Sealy's, and they're nationally distributed. They're mid products nationwide. So that could affect a national food supply, right? You could those toxins could be getting, so that seems like a big liability to me. But also, if our county was supporting agriculture, I bet you 5,000 acres out there would be more in production commercially. So it's just depending on what they want to focus on economically. But then the third con here is just the hazardous nature of this project, and specifically citing on these liquefiable soils in a subduction zone. And we're all very aware that this big earthquake is coming. And
one, right?
Yeah. And there's like a lot of planning that people are doing around this earthquake. And so, the people that are in favor of this project will say that this has been already zoned industrial, and that it is set up for this. And we question why it was that ever happened in the first place.
Okay.
And there is a history with that. It was, a military base, and then they said that they were going to give it back to the people, and they ended up not giving it back to the people. They gave it to the Port of Columbia County. And then a series of rezoning happened. And I don't think that the subduction zone earthquake was on the radar when all of that, passed. So I think that there needs to be some reevaluation along there, because if this plant, the largest renewable diesel facility, went into the Columbia River, it would kill the Columbia River. And that is what would happen if the earthquake came. So,
and that's really just like big picture, obviously that's one seismic event. And this facility could actually kill the Columbia, and on it goes, spreading throughout our waterways. But even smaller spills, even smaller levels of contamination, these almost 6,000 acres are all connected. In their waterways. And what happens in one spot affects what happens everywhere. And talk to the people who manage the dikes. They know how water and beaver dams, affect the entire area.
And there's always a spill.
There's always of something.
And that's why they have those plans, right? The contamination plans. So
that's our summarized version.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that. That you guys have done some amazing homework and have really followed that. I really appreciate you sharing your insight to that. I'm going to look up all that stuff and just check it out, because you guys brought up some really awesome points. So I have a quote, you guys, from Next Renewables, from their website, nextrenewables.com. And it says that they turn recycled organic materials, such as used cooking oil, into an advanced biofuel that works just like petroleum-based diesel, but with as much as 85% less greenhouse gas emissions. With our development and technology partners, Next Renewable Fuels provides the renewable transportation fuels for the future demands. What would you guys? I know that's a lot. That's what they put out. This is their it's just their statement for this project. And I'm like, what do you guys think about that?
Well, I'll start off by saying they always lead with used cooking oil. Of course, when you really crack into it, that's going to be approximately 10%. That's a burgeoning industry. And Christopher Efford, the CEO himself, said, really, I would have to collect used cooking oil one walk at a time. He said that
on a radio interview.
And that's how they would get their oil for the world's largest renewable diesel facility.
Like cooking walks in Asia. That's what he's referring to.
Right.
Oh, walk. Like WOKS. I was like, walk.
So let's just talk about the reality of their feedstocks, which are their ingredients. Right. So they're saying it's recycled organic material, but really a huge majority of the products that are the feedstocks, let's call them feedstocks, will be virgin oil crops like corn and soy and canola. And then guess what? Animal tallow. Well, what are those animals being fed? Corn and soy and canola. You look at our top genetically modified subsidized crops in the world, and it's corn and soy and canola. And I'm generalizing a little bit here. Obviously that all of those ebb and flow, but the main structure of that agricultural system is corn and soy and canola, and it's genetically modified, and it's lots of pesticides, and it's lots of tilling and lots of destruction, and actually is responsible for being one of the major emitters on the planet. So how can you tell me that this facility is producing renewable or sustainable or low emission? Sure, okay, it combusts. When you put it in your engine, it produces less emissions than standard diesel. But if you're looking at the total cost accounting of the entire life cycle, or what our regulatory agencies, the Department of Environmental Quality, the DEQ, calls carbon intensity scoring, and Christopher loves to talk about this, it's completely incomplete. There is
Okay.
so much that is missing from how we measure carbon intensity scoring.
They'll even admit to that.
And they'll admit to that.
Mm.
Pesticides, the effect of pesticides on soil microbiology is not even, that's not even a thing. It goes in one ear and out the other when you bring that up at a hearing. It's not even applicable. And so,
Okay.
so then the third thing I want to unpack in that quote is that this is leading the future, leading the way into the future for how we consume energy. And what we as humans need to be looking at right now in this very emergent moment is not how to produce energy in a different way or in a new way, but how to use what we have more appropriately to minimize waste. Because there's this phenomenon with humans. When we figure out how to be more efficient at producing energy, we just use more of it, which makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like, if I get really good at growing food, then I'm going to have to build an extra pantry to store it all, right? And that's just what we do. We love to store, we love to increase, we love to, not look back, right? And I'm not asking people to look back. We're just asking people, in looking forward, why do we need to produce more diesel? Why are we shipping apples from New Zealand? Maybe we could stop that. Why are we shipping cows from Africa, meat from Africa? It's just crazy.
No matter how you look at it, renewable diesel is a bridging industry. And yes, he can, retrofit his facility to produce something different down the road. But food, agriculture, that's not a bridging industry. We all need that to survive. And so, that's, what else do you have, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get much more plain than that.
I really, really greatly appreciate you two taking the time to share this information and to get this information out to our community, and to taking the time to, meet with me. And for more information, I'm going to post your guys' email, your email address afterwards. It's safeportwestward@gmail.com. And you can put them on your email list, and people can get up-to-date information of meetings and different things that are going on and different information that you find. So thank you, Jasmine and Brandon. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much,
Sharrie. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.